this Facebook Live about getting into action mode, and something that came up a lot last week in the Facebook group, as well as in my own life and in life of a few clients of mine, is different cycles. We're so programmed that everything has to always be productive, always outgoing, always kind of this extroverted energy. And we forget that we go through different cycles. So we kind of push ourselves to be in this productive mode, and we kind of forget to honor where we're at. Now, today I want to walk through the different cycles. Now, I wrote them all down because I don't know all the cycles by heart and exactly how many years, how many days in certain signs. And the reason why I want to talk about this is I know most of you probably have heard about Saturn Return. And Saturn Return is something that over the last few years got quite of a popular thing. Hello, Susan. Actually came up with a talk that I had with Susan for her membership. We actually talked about Saturn Return. And I just want to give you the bigger context of all of these returns and all of these movements that we have happening in our own charts. So let me be very clear. When I'm going to talk about the cycles today, it is the cycles in relation to your personal natal chart or your birth chart. So when I talk about a return, what it basically just means is that the planet that we're talking about comes at the same location as it was at when you were born. For every planet, that's very different. Some move very fast, some move very slow. Now, one that everybody is super familiar with is the sun return, your birthday. That is the moment where the sun is at the same angle as as the day you were born. So it's like your birthday, because the cycle of the sun is 365 days. I'm gonna make it a little bit more complicated, because sometimes your sun return will actually be a day before or a day after your birthday, because we're literally talking about the same degree. Every planet is at a certain degree in the zodiac sign. So it can tend that your sun return or your solar return is at a slight day before or day after of your birth. Probably that's because if you're born near midnight or early morning, that can be that there is a time where your solar return is at a different moment. But that's like a side note. Most of the time when you have a solar return, it's your birthday. Hi, Wendy. Good that you're here as well. So I'm going to walk you through the different planets. I'm going to tell you what the cycle is and how long they spend in each sign. Now, the closer the planet is, the faster the cycle, the further the planet is away, the longer the cycle. There are two planets, unless you're superhuman, but you probably never will have an actual return. Neptune and Pluto. They move so slow that you probably won't have a return. For the other planets, you will experience a return. So let's start with the moon, because I already explained the sun. The sun takes 365 days to go around the zodiac, and it stays roughly about 30 days in the same sign. And that's the one we're most familiar with. Then we have the moon. And the moon goes through all of the zodiac in 29.5 days. So this is the one that moves the fastest through all of the zodiac signs. It stays in one sign roughly about 2.5 days. Now, what actually is really beautiful about the moon is that it's kind of a practice for us. When the bigger planets move in a different sign or move or have a return, we kind of have like this practice phase. Because we go through the different signs every 2.5 days, each time we have a little peek into what it would be like if bigger planets would go in there. So technically the sun comes, or the moon comes back to the same place of your birth every 29.5 days. And what this means is when the moon is in the sign that your natal moon is in. So natal moon means the location where your moon is in your natal chart or your birth chart. So when the moon is at that place, every 29.5 days, you feel usually emotionally supported if you're balanced. Now, if you're unbalanced and if you feel a little bit shaky when the moon comes in your own sign, you might actually experience more, you're not at ease. You feel this almost anxious feeling because you're not in tune with your emotions, because you're not really listening to what you're feeling. And I mean, this is a path that I was on for many years, where acknowledging what I'm feeling, like not just consciously, like deeply like feeling your feelings, what we always say, feeling your feelings, but deeply be okay with what you feel. Then when the moon comes on your natal moon sign, you're more okay. You're actually more supported. You will feel more at ease. But it does require a little bit of balancing and work on the inside. So Susan and Wendy, what is your moon sign? I'm curious if you know. Well, I know Wendy knows. Pretty sure Susan knows as well. And I wonder if you ever experienced the significance, or if you have tracked the significance of your moon sign coming together. I know when the moon's in Taurus, and if I'm not grounded, I feel very shaky. So on to the next one. Yes, Susan says her moon sign is a Libra, all about balance. And we just had a full moon in Libra. So your moon was very much highlighted and really spotlighted last weekend. I hope you survived the full moon. Okay. Then you came through in one piece. And when her moon is in Aquarius, revolutionary thinker. Very much outside the box, which when it comes to your emotions, when the moon's in Aquarius, it will look really at the broader picture, and sometimes a little bit harder to own what you're feeling because of this bigger picture that's happening. So every month you kind of have this practice of really tuning into your emotions, tuning into your feelings, tuning into what you desire, really. That's what your moon sign is about. Ladies, if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot me one. So the next one is Mercury. Now, the Mercury cycle is roughly 116 days. It stays about 14 to 30 days in one sign, roughly. This depends on the retrograde. So if there's a retrograde, it can spend up to 30 days in one sign. It moves quite fast. So it kind of does this play with the sun, where it goes faster than the sun, and then it turns backwards, and it's behind the sun again, and then it goes faster than the sun, and it's in front of the sun again. So it kind of switches back and forth. So it goes through the zodiac quite quickly. Susan said that she felt the full moon very much, and the balance thing. I felt tired a lot, so I need, yes, tend to your feminine side. Yeah, this moon was really like a kind of a tug of war, where you you were invited to find a way to balance the opposite energies. So with Mercury, that one returns roughly around I just see that 160 days can never be correct. It like plays with the sun, so I wrote that down wrong, and that's annoying me. So I really have to quickly look up the Mercury cycle because I don't have my book within reach. So hold on. I want to give you a correct answer, because 116 days cannot be correct. hold on. Well, okay, I will come back to that. I'll post it in the chat. So every time when Mercury, so what I've started to notice with my clients and as well with myself is when you look, for instance, at dates to launch things, if Mercury is in the same sign, awesome. That will actually help to like channel the way that you communicate, channel the way that you show up. But that's only roughly about once a year, or maybe twice a year when it goes into retrograde, it actually hits your natal Mercury. But what you can also look for is in the same element. So let's say your Mercury is in Taurus, then look for where Mercury is in Virgo, or where Mercury is in Capricorn. Now, this is again not like a fixed rule where you have to look at that, but if you have the flexibility and if you have the possibility to look at that, look at other ways where Mercury is in an earth element, if your Mercury is in an earth element, or at the fire, air, or water signs. Because I've seen that once it's in your own element, it's much easier to transfer your message and to talk about what it is that you want to bring into the world. It's more smooth, it's easier, you feel more in tuned, and it goes much easier instead of trying to like force yourself. Now, of course, there are many other factors at play when you're looking at a launch date. But if you're doing it by yourself, this is one of those things where you can look for where's Mercury, in what house is Mercury. Now, I won't go too much in the houses. That could be a life for another time. But it really helps you to understand, okay, so what feels good and what doesn't, and how can I really align myself with that energy. The next one we have is Venus. Now, Venus takes about 19 months to travel through the zodiac, and it stays in one sign for about 4 to 5 weeks, depend also a little bit on the retrogrades. Venus doesn't retrograde that often, but you will see that also affects how long it stays in the sign. So that also means that every 19 months you have a Venus return. So every 1.5 years you have a Venus return. Now, a Venus return, actually came up with a client this morning. A Venus return is a moment to practice receiving. Venus, the goddess of love, she sat back and she lets people come to her. She wants to be pampered. She wants to be taken care of, not in a passive way where she's like, I'm not gonna do anything, but she's allowing the help to come in. She's allowing to receive. Now, you can have all the help around you. You can have all the things around you, but if you're not ready to receive, it's not going to come in. It's not going to actually come into your life, even though it's right there. So when Venus is returning, it is a beautiful moment to come to terms with how much you receive, how much you allow yourself to receive, what is, how are you honoring your feminine side, as well as the masculine, because Venus doesn't discriminate with saying like masculine is bad and feminine is good. But Venus, because she also rules Libra, she's asking you to find a beautiful balance with that. Yes, Wendy has her Venus return in her birthday month, which is this just is not that every time you will have your Venus return in your birthday month, but Wendy's actually having her Venus return on her birthday month, which celebration. So first the birthday celebration, and then the celebration of the feminine, of love, of receptivity, but also that leaning back, which is such a powerful thing to do. Also in conversations, like I'm actually doing the same. Like, and the more enthusiastic I get, the more I lean forward. But if you lean back, your chest gets more space. You can breathe better. It's really a way to allow yourself to receive, to allow yourself to kind of bask in that beautiful, soft energy that Venus is. Soft and powerful, because also she doesn't like to be messed around with. So she's this beautiful balance of, this is me, this is where I stand, and now you can come to me. Yeah, Susan said to Wendy, be open to receive a lot of birthday gifts. Yes, all about receiving and receptivity. So when you have a Venus return, that's a time when focus on pleasure, focus on enjoyment of life. Venus likes the beautiful things in life. Like, go out with your girlfriends when it's allowed. Go to a spa, pamper yourself. And you don't have to wait for others to pamper you. You can pamper yourself. Which is a beautiful time to... and Wendy's going to prep 2 months to receive. It's just beautiful. So it is a time where, let's say if you are planning to launch, I mean, I'm picking the example of launching because that's kind of something that most people can relate to. If you're launching around a Venus return, if you can move the date closer to that, you can really practice your receiving. You can practice being the non-attachment to the outcome. Especially when we launch, we kind of have this this hope, this desire to be able to get this many clients. And of course we have to set goals, but at the same time set the goal and then detach from the outcome. During a Venus return, this is a beautiful moment to detach from the outcome and to truly go into the receiving mode. The next one up is Mars. Mars moves a little bit slower. It takes about 24 months, so almost 2 years to go around the zodiac. And it stays in one sign 6 to 7 weeks. Now, a Mars return is less, is felt a little bit less because Venus is really, we already are so much in the masculine energy because Mars is very masculine, very action-driven, passionate. When Venus returns, it's kind of like or somebody like flicking your nose, your ear, like, pay attention, receive. Where Mars is like, it's kind of this hypertension of masculine energy where you go like, where we feel very much on fire. And if you have Mars in a fire sign, like I do, a Mars return can be quite intense, and can kind of push you too much to even further into masculine. So when you have a Mars return, it's really an invitation to use your masculine, because I don't want to say masculine is bad at all. We need both. But how can you use your masculine energy in a way that is supportive? Because masculine energy can be just as supportive and just as needed as the feminine. But because we're so stuck in the masculine and kind of idealizing it, like, oh, be in the masculine. But it's really beautiful if you can actually embrace the masculine and how you can direct that in a way that is good for you, and a way that is constructive instead of what masculine tend to be, because we are in such an overly masculine society that it's destructive. So how can you use it constructive instead of destructive? The next one is Jupiter. And Jupiter, the planet of expansion, the planet of good luck, is about 12 years. Again, the further the planet is away, the more range there is in how long they take because of the retrogrades. And the bigger the planet, the further the planets are, they also go into a different orb, so it's not exactly that many years. So about 12 years, depending a little bit on where it's at. So it stays in one zodiac sign between 12 to 13 months. Now, if you have been paying attention, Jupiter is actually going to stay very short in Aquarius this year. Definitely not 12 months. It moved into Aquarius last year in December, the Grand Conjunction, and it is going to, I don't know the date exactly, but it's already going to be this year, so it's not going to stay until December in one sign. It's actually going to move to Pisces quicker than the 12 months, and this has to do with the different ecliptic that the planets rotate. I'm not going to go into that too much. You just need to know that it's roughly around 12 to 13 months. Now, when Jupiter returns, every time Jupiter moves, has returned, there will be a different planet that rules that next 12 years. And it's really a beautiful moment to assess in your life. So how have I been using that expansive energy? How have I been using the ability that Jupiter has to change things around, to aim big instead of looking at the smaller things? How can I embrace that Jupiter energy where I really shoot far and high and like go wide? That's something that, so all the planets that I've listed so far, which is the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, they tend to give us little nudges, little pushes into certain directions, letting us know if things are a little bit off, gently pushing us in a different direction, gently kind of putting signs left and right, saying, well, maybe we should go this way, maybe we should go that way. Then we hit Saturn, and Saturn goes around the zodiac roughly between 28 to 29 years. It stays in one sign anywhere between 2 to 3 years, depending on the retrograde cycles. Once we hit Saturn, we will learn pretty intense lessons, because Saturn is kind of like the Lord of Karma. It's really kind of father figure of the zodiac. And Saturn doesn't give nudges. Saturn just shoves you in the right direction, whether you want it or not. So if you have been living in alignment, if you have really followed those inklings, those drives and urges that you had to follow your passion, then there's not much gonna happen. But most people, when you think back, about 29, 28 years old, most of us had a moment where sometimes something very shocking happened that forced you to look at it differently. To give you a very personal example, so because Saturn goes into retrograde, sometimes your Saturn return, so after like 28, 29 years old, sometimes it hits your Saturn 3 times because of the retrograde motion. So first it goes direct, it hits it, then it goes retrograde, it hits it again, and then it goes direct again, and it hits it again. When I was 29, and the third time that Saturn was hitting my natal Saturn, so the third hit of the Saturn return, I actually had a miscarriage. And my Saturn is in Scorpio. And Scorpio represents death and rebirth, renewal, transformation. And if I look back now, I realize that I wasn't living in alignment and I wasn't listening. I was really pushing an agenda that wasn't in my best interest. So what ended up happening is I had the miscarriage, but I also didn't take time to really process through that emotion, process through that event. I did. I thought I did. But I didn't. Quite quickly after that, got pregnant with my second. And after my second was born, I had a postpartum depression. Not to say that everybody that ignores the messages of a Saturn return will actually get into depression. But for me, if I look back and I can kind of trace the steps, I can see how ignoring my own feelings, ignoring what was happening, ended up creating this space where maybe a postpartum depression would have still developed. But for me, it feels like that was the catalyst to like kind of make it spiral downwards. And if you're listening right now, most of you are a little bit older than 28 and 29. So if you look back and think back of what happened, look up in what sign your Saturn is at. That will tell you a lot about the energy of Saturn. And allow yourself to process through that. What were the lessons? What happened? Did I listen to my intuition? Did I listen to what was happening? Did something shocking happen? I know one of my clients actually had her apartment burn down. So she had to move. That was like her dream apartment. And her insurance wasn't correct. So she wasn't even able to get most of the money back because of the insurance not being right. And this is what Saturn does. Saturn likes structures. Saturn likes rules. Saturn likes to be, to do things by the book. So if you haven't done things by the book, whether it's emotional, like your emotional well-being, or if it's been something that, like actual structures they have been taken care of, then Saturn usually like throws it in your face and says, pay attention. So the next time that this happens, which for most of us will be around the 57, 58, 59, again, depending a little bit, what will show up for you? What, I mean, we cannot predict, but this is a good time to actually consider what might I need to put in place to go through the next phase. But there will be a few other aspects that are coming before we hit the age of, I'm so bad at math, like 57, 58. If you're watching now live or the replay, let me know if you have something that you don't have to share exactly what happened, but if you can recall something happening around the ages 28, 29, let me know, because I'm pretty sure that most of us have something that has come up. So the other planet is Uranus, and Uranus takes about 84 years. It stays about 7 years in one sign. So where with the moon, we almost feel when it shifts a sign. With Uranus, because it's so slow, we don't exactly can pinpoint, okay, now it moves in a new sign, so I feel that. Last year, Uranus moved into Taurus, and it's going to stay there for another 6 years. And it's not like instantly we feel like, oof, this is different. Because it's a 7-year span, when it moves into a new sign, it kind of like slowly goes into the new sign. It's not like it directly lights us up and things like, whoa, Uranus is in a new sign. So Uranus is the planet of quick transformation, innovation, flipping things upside down quickly, because it's not like, let's just like softly do this. Wendy said she packed her bags and left for Australia. Well, that's quite a big change indeed. That's really like uprooting everything, that like going out of the structures and into exploring new phases. I'm curious, what was your Saturn again? Do you know? I'm curious. So it is really important to honor the different cycles. So with Uranus, when it goes into a new sign, allow yourself to feel the difference in what area the innovation will take place. Now, you might have a Uranus return, but I don't think I have many 84-year-olds around here. So what we are going to experience earlier is our Uranus opposition. Wendy has her Saturn and Libra. 8th house. And Susan was 6 months into living into Washington, D.C. 2001 was a crazy year, especially living in D.C. I can imagine. 2021 in the U.S. was pretty intense. So being, especially in the capital, I can imagine that so many different, so many structures changed really in 2001. I'm so used to saying 2020. 2001, yeah. Saturn in Libra, that's trying to create harmony and balance, mostly outward balance. And actually you packing your bags and going to Australia was tending to your inner balance instead of the outer balance and trying to keep everybody happy. This is about me. I'm turning inwards. And the 8th house. The 8th house is also related to death and rebirth. Starting a new cycle, transformation, like burning everything down and starting all over again. Quit my job, yes, freedom. Quit my job, left my house, and pack my bags. Yeah, that's very much actually learning the lesson. That is not ignoring it. This is like embracing the lesson, learn the lesson, and just go. That's beautiful. So the next lesson that we have is the Uranus opposition, which is when you're around 41, 42, 43. Again, because of the planet moving so slow, we cannot pinpoint it exactly. It depends a little bit on where you're at. So when there's an opposition, so usually when there's a return, we have this opening, this knowledge coming in. But an opposition is always a little bit of a challenging aspect where it kind of feels like there's tension and it has to go one way or the other. So when Uranus opposition, this is when a lot of people are experiencing their pre-midlife crisis, or we call it a midlife crisis. But it's actually it's an awakening, because Uranus also stands for awakening. And this opposition that you have is this awakening. For women, it manifests slightly different, because women usually have an open heart, but their throat is very blocked. Men usually have a closed heart, but an open throat chakra. So for the energy to rise, which is like the Kundalini Rising, there's a whole book about this, which is really interesting, by the way. But it's really like the energy going up. And if you get stuck somewhere, we feel stuck, which is the reason why which is one of the reasons why men often try to chase younger women, because they need the love. They're not opening themselves up. They're looking for love in different directions. For women, it's often a time where they learn how to speak up or stay silent, which is like really to go through the block. That is with what happens with Uranus. That is the energy that you can start to feel around the age of 41, 42, 43 ish. The next one we have up is Neptune. I see I'm already talking for 30 minutes, so I'm not going to last much longer, because I just want to quickly give you these next ones. Neptune is, this is one that we're never going to experience the return, because it's 165 years, roughly. It stays anywhere from 10 to 14 years in one sign. We're not going to have the return. We're also not the opposition. Well, the opposition, maybe. But there's also a square, but that's very deep into details. I also want to point out Pluto, and nobody will ever get a Pluto return, because that's 248 years roughly, because it stays anywhere between 12 to 30 years in one sign. This is because Pluto kind of does a unusual trip, so we cannot really pinpoint exactly when it's gonna be. We're not gonna have a return. We're also not gonna have an opposition. You might have a square, but that's also not a given. So why to circle back to getting into action mode, when you understand the different cycles, when you understand how the relationship of the planets now relate to your natal chart, to your birth chart, you will start to understand why sometimes that action mode is not really like you're in Aries season. We're supposed to be active. We're supposed to have lots of energy. But let's say if you're coming up on a Jupiter return, or there's another aspect that is happening which makes you feel like you're stuck, it's because of these different cycles. It's because of these different ways that the planets move and interact with your own chart. I mean, now I just focused on the returns of planets coming back to their same place in your natal chart, but they also make aspects among each other. If you understand that sometimes you cannot really push these active modes. Like this morning, when I was with my client, we talked about, first she came up with dates to promote something. And then I looked at the astrology. And this is a crucial part of using astrology. This is not looking at the astrology and then making your decision. This is tuning into what you feel. How does it feel in your body? What is important to you? And then look at the different dates. Then you go to the astrology. And then you look at, okay, so how does this show up? How do these things connect? Her Mercury is in alignment with the Mercury at that moment where she's going to promote something. That creates this portal where it'll be easier for her to speak up. It will be easier for her to talk. The moon is making an aspect to her natal Black Moon Lilith, which allows her to access the hidden parts, the parts where shame might show up, disconnect. The moon highlights that, so it can actually like come out, and she can use that in this particular sense in her promotion. If you know all of these things, you actually know, like, okay, so my objections, my shame, my disconnect can show up, but I know that on forehand, so I can actually work with that and use it in my promotion. Chiron being highlighted. Chiron is in Aries right now, so the wounds that we're dealing with, the wounds that we're going through and we're healing, are related to our identity, to the way that we see ourselves. It's happening in our second house, which is a foundational house, which is the house also of personal finances. So it's redefining the way that she sees her finances. What wounds are showing up? How can she heal through that and take that to help others heal as well? Not to say that if any of these planets were in a different location, she shouldn't do the promotion. But this is what is presented at a time where she feels like the promotion can take place. And if you know that, know also the things that are maybe a bit, I would say, less favorable, but play with that. Because there's never a negative aspect. There's never something wrong or bad about astrology. It's knowing that, making an informed decision, and then go from there. So I'm coming up at 40 minutes. I can talk about this a lot longer, but I'm going to leave it at that. If you're watching the replay and you have any questions, let me know. If you are like, let me know what those cycles are. Let me understand my cycles and know exactly where I'm at and what my next steps will be. leave me a comment and I will get back at you and tell you more about the ways we can work together, and you can dive into your cycles and really optimize the way that you work, your life, and everything else. So I'm wishing you an amazing day. I hope wherever you are, the weather is as gorgeous as it is here. And I'm sending you lots of love, and talk to you again on Thursday, because on Thursday I'm doing the April Astro Insight. So stay tuned for that. Also, if you have any questions about April, if you're planning on launching something, let me know, because I can look at the different dates and I can see what date is more favorable for launching or doing anything. Thank you for joining me, and I'm wishing you a fantastic day.